Welcome to our webinar on agility in the future of work. My name is Cindy Gan from ADAPTOVATE, and we're so excited you're able to join us today. I'll start with a brief housekeeping message. You'll notice that everyone's mic are muted and cameras are turned off. This is intentional to keep the focus on our speakers today. Our webinar will be recorded, and please post questions as you proceed in the chat box. If you have any specific questions for the speakers, please indicate in the chat box. However, in the interest of time, we might not be able to take all the questions, but we will try. A quick introduction about us. ADAPTOVATE is a global agile consulting company. We have 8 offices around the world and over 130 agile consultants and coaches. We specialize in scaling agile ways of working and embedding sustainable change. So our clients told us that as the pace of change in business accelerates, they are pushing HR to take a more active role in redefining how and where work gets done. They must take on initiatives such as redesigning the physical work environment, implementing a new organizational structure, and enabling transformational change. Of course, the big disruptions, such as the pandemic, have also made the concept of agility in HR more critical. HR must now have the capacity to strategically engage with other organizational units, identify future people needs, and proactively feed innovative and purpose-driven ideas into the organization. Based on our experience, implementing Agile in HR prioritizes HR initiatives. Managing the work as a portfolio creates a more proactive employee and customer-focused HR operating model, and supports the scaling of Agile across the business. Today, you will hear from our panelists the session on agility in the future of work. We have invited speakers from different industries, countries, culture, and background, and they will share their best practices with us. To moderate this session, I would like to introduce my colleague, Greg Tennant, Principal at ADAPTOVATE. Greg has led, coached, and delivered successful change transformation projects within startups and multinational corporations. This includes financial services, healthcare, communication sectors, energy and technology industry across the US, Mexico, Kazakhstan, India, Singapore, Malaysia, and South Africa. Greg specializes in business design, agile program and portfolio delivery, and establishing agile centers of excellence to support transformation. So with that, I'd like to welcome Greg and our guest of speakers to share their thoughts. Over to you, Greg.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for the warm introduction. Welcome everyone to today's session. I'd like to give a warm welcome to all of you and thank you for joining, and especially our panelists. We have a very exciting group on the call for us today. I'd like to kick us off by introducing each of the panelists to the audience. I'll start off with introducing Aeon Yap, who is the Agile Coach for Strategy and Transformation at Roche Pharmaceutical. Aeon, welcome and thank you for joining us. We'd love to hear a quick introduction from yourself.
Thanks, great everyone. My name is Aeon. So currently I'm the Agile Coach leading transformation and strategy agenda globally in one of the pharmaceutical organizations. In the past decade, I've been mainly working in the HR org development space. I've done HR project, manufacturing startup, talent development and management. Feel free to hit me up in the LinkedIn for virtual chat if let's say you want to. Happy to connect and learn about you and everyone. Thanks, great, and thanks for the invitation.
Fantastic, thank you, Aeon. Welcome. Secondly, let's introduce Aaron, who's the Vice President for Organizational Development at DBS Bank. Aaron, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Greg, for this warm welcome. And I'm happy to be here as a part of the panel. And more importantly, to tap onto the rich wisdom that's present in this particular panel discussion today. I work for Development Bank of Singapore, leading the organization development vertical for the India region, which is one of the largest growing market for the bank. And bring in experience of having worked in the human resource function, driving talent and the organizational transformations across organizations like GE, Cummins, Schneider, and Honeywell. So that's a bit of an intro and looking forward for this conversation.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Third on our list is Isliana Ismail Bonnifay. She is the head of HR for Southeast Asia at Alpha New Concept. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Isliana.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'm Isliana Ismail Bonnifay. Please call me Liana. I have over 20 years working experience, now heading a company that actually work as a BPO and also shared services for a fintech. Newly joined company, was from a government agency before and other MNCs as well. So I hope that my session today will bring best practices and also learning from all of you. Thank you guys, and thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Isliana. All right, last but not least, Asep Susilo, who is the Chief PNC and Corporate Affairs Officer at Suntory Garuda Beverage, Indonesia. Welcome, Asep, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, the panelist colleague. Yeah, so it's really a pleasure actually to be with all of you here this morning, and really looking forward to have a fruitful discussion, sharing, and learning. Yeah, from this session. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, great. So welcome everyone once again. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask the panelists 3 questions. And we'll allot 15 minutes per question. So if I really interrupt some of the panelists to close up their comments and feedback or their views, please bear with me. In the interest of time, we want to try and get through these questions. So let's start off with the first question. What does agility mean in human resources? And to start this off, I'd like to ask Aeon to share your perspectives as the starting point.
Thanks, Greg. I think to first define agility in the HR, we need to start asking ourselves, what is the most important things that matter us the most? Actually, it's the people. So you will find that in Roche, we abandoned the industrial term of HR and use people and culture across the board, whereby we want everyone HR personnel here is focusing on people and culture. So this is where we set up the agility settings so that we can attract, retain, and also develop our talents worldwide. Some of the key characteristics in the agile setting are network way of working, flat organization. Each one seems like you have more portfolio supporting more country and beyond geographical limits. So this is the visions that I'm envisioning when we talk about agility in HR. Not just only flexibility, but from a structure wise, the mindset wise, we are supporting far beyond. I think that's the definitions from what I'm seeing so far. I'm just not sure whether the rest of the panelists.
Isliana, what are your views to what Aeon's talking about there?
Okay, Aeon says something, 2 things actually very interesting about people and culture. And of course, we know that agility, it's a new term now, and it's not, you cannot, calculate agility. Agility is also an area where it's about we adapt and we evolve, yeah? So, and of course, now after what's happening, people, we need to form that the resources, which is people, and how we assimilate the best culture that we want into the people, so that indirectly agility with HR and also for the organization can be working together.
All right.
All right.
Any other views? Arun, from a banking perspective, I think we would love to hear how you can complement or even maybe slightly disagree to some degree.
Yeah, so interestingly, if we look out on the current base scenario, even the traditional setups like banking, manufacturing are getting disrupted with the new age startups and the technology disruptions, right? And therefore, it becomes all the more critical for the human resource function to lead from the front in terms of being agile and helping the business respond by virtue of adapting its talent and the culture related strategy. A case in point, as simple as that of our traditional performance management systems no more stands as relevant, and it is getting evolved into more of an agile performance management mechanism, more project focused. Similarly, if we look out onto our traditional annual employee engagement surveys, which would be an annual affair, is becoming more agile to pulse the employees' sentiments on the go and respond to those changed expectations from the employees. So in short, I believe it's the time for the function to evolve from a traditional waterfall approach to a more agile approach where it fails fast and learns fast, moves fast.
Okay. Asep, from your FMCG perspective, what are your views around that?
Thank you, Greg, and thank you also my other colleague. Yeah. So basically, from the manufacturing FMCG perspective, yes, actually, we still have a factory. We still have people to come to the factory. Yeah, even though in the pandemic times, because we need to produce and to deliver our product to the consumers. However, actually, agility also is very important. So from our perspective, that my colleague also already mentions about the people and cultures. This is very important things. And even in the FMCG now, actually, is that how to connect, how to build employee experience, yeah, using and optimizing the technology or digitalizations to strengthening the engagement also is really key to make organization becoming agile. And then we are anticipating for the the future needs to be more competitive. And in Suntory especially, we are calling as growing for good. Yeah, thank you.
By the way, may I allow to build
Please,
on what Arun is saying? it just struck my mind just now when you say learn fast, feel fast. Yeah, actually, as a HR personnel, people always ask us, we do have a set of policy, SOP. We are so hung up to that for the past few decades already. When I tell people we need to be agile in the HR, then people ask me, how about the SOP established? How do we do about it? How do we allow HR to learn fast? Meanwhile, we want to safeguard of the process we have built in the past decades. I just wonder how it's three of your views, because I might have some experience in that. I'm not sure in other industry.
Okay, I would like to add on to Aeon statement, yeah, guys. Today in the environment that I'm working with, fintech, yeah. So we do have SOP in place, definitely. But then again, true, with agility in the picture, what we need to do is HR has to be the significant driver to actually look at situations, yeah. So definitely we, on top of that, we have statutory law as well, yeah. But it is how we circumvent around it and then look at situations, because at the end of the day, you said two things, Aeon. It's about people and culture earlier, yes? So I think that, when we able to manage the people, the traditions, and also the know-how here, I think the SOP is a direction, but it's how we work around it.
And that also leaves me with a reflection that at the end of the day, it narrows down to how much am I ready to let go of. And it reminds me of the Marshall Goldsmith's statement of what got me here may not be taking us to the next stage, right? And as simple as that of some of our organizational designs, which would have led to the success of where we are currently. Are we ready to let go of some of those things, become more agile, allow the space for the newness to come in order to sustain and thrive with the changes that are emerging? And that turns out to be the key for the differentiation.
Asep, I'm interested to hear from you from an FMCG perspective.
Well, actually, it's very interesting also question from Aeon, yeah. I just would like to add up from the FMCG perspective. I think on the last 2 years also we have done some HR transformation itself. When we are trying, for example, in regard with the SOP or policy we have. In the past, for example, HR, keep everything by ourselves, and then employee, if they need to know or they need to see, then they come to the HR representative or HR VP to understand it. But now actually with this kind of transformations and agile, yeah, we actually creating a system when people can access, people can, like go through the SPNC anytime, and then we provide, like 24/7 assistance and respond to them. And even we also, like provide the feedback at the end, for example, how good the response we are giving to them. Yeah. And then this is for improvement ourselves in the HR for the coming future. So it's really, like take and give, and inspiring the, like learning each other, so we can like not only HR to learn, but also, like we try to encouraging people also to learn. Yeah. And then providing the feedback to others in the organization to build stronger engagement.
Yeah, I really like the way you put the engagement at the learning point, because once upon a time, I recall one leader been telling me, I say, Aeon, we are so tired of transformation and keep learning the new thing. I asked them, I say, look, the markets keep changing, the new things coming in the past 2 years, even faster. Are we okay to afford not to change and stay your old way in responding? You still talk the KPI you set 1 year ago. Instead of every quarter, we start relooking with the stakeholders to do not really a business quarterly review. It's more like a retrospective, what we done right, what we should done differently next quarter. I think that realignment, constant realignment is really important. But I just want to point out, people may feel fatigued about transformation. People may feel like, God, do we need to stay agile, keep on learning? I'm not sure whether this applies the same to every other industry as well.
I've got some views on that as well. To Asep's point earlier, in my experience in supporting projects in different organizations as they went through transformation, HR policy and changes within HR, and as they support different business units, seems to have been mostly done within kind of a black box situation, right? And it's only when they, at the point of rolling it out, is that made known. So that kind of rapid iteration and learning and integrating people into it, not just the leaders, but others, really helps to get that buy-in. We've certainly learned that in some of the many projects that we worked on as well, getting that early buy-in from the people on the ground that we're impacting change on and getting them into part of the process. So that rapid learning and iteration is quite critical. Any closing thoughts there, Aeon?
By the way, Greg, I just want to build up and just slightly, might put in a naughty questions here. Huh? So when we say about protected experiment, start small so that we can, display and also get it tested out. There are things that we just can't drop in the HR space here.
Sure.
And the compliance things is still very high. But how to make the transparency out of the, the review changes is a few years long homework for all of us as a HR practitioner in the market now. How can we make the process more transparent? People get to be aware. Every quarter when they talk to us, they say, I know why you're doing this. I know what the changes is. I know what is the learning is. I think that is, long time things, and especially to build up the protected experiments, like you say.
Yeah. I think that's a loaded question, and there's a lot of ways in which you can skin that one. But Isliana and Arun, even from your perspective from the banking, right? Large scale transformation in DBS, that's a big endeavor. So let's start with you, Arun. Like closing thoughts. I know we have only 3 minutes left, or 3.5 minutes left. How do we bring transparency to the people when we're thinking about change? Top down, how do we bring transparency early on, that when the change does materialize, they feel like they're part of the journey and they're a lot more accepting of that change? Do you have any experience or views on that? Yeah.
So interestingly, like the larger organization, the banking setup, be it DBS or for that matter, the larger banking setup is in itself at its very interesting space of getting consolidated inorganically, and like with the new disruptions that are happening through the fintech space and so on and so forth, right? The key over here is many a time we refrain ourselves from communicating to the employees, and for that matter, even engaging them in that process of change. As Aeon has very rightly brought in, and also as you, Greg, talked about, we typically keep the entire of the change management process restricted to the closed doors. And when the rubber hits the road of actually executing the change, we get to face all those challenges. And the other important thing which I also wanted to call out is many a time when we start engaging the employees at the initial stages of the change transformation, it may delay the process at the initial stages, but fearing that particular delay when we rush out towards creating a solution within a closed box, then when the actual implementation of the change happens, then the entire accumulated delay happens then, and like the entire change transformation fails. Therefore, the key point which I want to communicate is the importance of engaging the employees at the early stages of the change transformation becomes critical.
One last question. I know we got one and a half minutes left. How adaptable should HR be through the rollout of change, right? So once they've gone through the full design and they've you know, like as you were talking about earlier on the closed box environment, when they go into roll and they realize certain things need to be adapted or changed or actually don't work. Where's HR's role in that? How quickly should they adapt? How do they adapt? Are they open to adaptability?
I jumped in here.
Go for it.
All right, great. I take it also from Arun's point of view, the engagement from the beginning. Yeah, having experience into change transformation about 5 years ago, I realized that not only we need to engage them, but also to constantly communicate and in the end to celebrate. So how does HR comes in when we realize, oops, there's changes, yeah? So what we need to do, and of course, HR, we do not have our own PR department. So HR also has to be the multitask, yeah? So we have to change our hats all the time. So when it comes to there's a change, we need to communicate the change and always ask ourselves in HR, when we communicate to the others, we need to understand what's in it for them first. So once we have that, then we can manage the change by constant communication.
I think that's a fantastic segue into our next question. So thank you for closing us off there, Isliana. So the second question is kind of related to what we were talking about. It's probably a nice spin-off from the first part of the discussion. How can HR function, how can the HR function add value to the business? So Isliana, you closed off the first question with a really nice end point there. So why don't you kick us off with your first point of view here?
Okay, thank you, Greg, for the questions. And I welcome all my other panelists also to support and to add in. So how HR can add value to our business, yeah? From my perspective and my years of experience is by aiding in recruiting, yeah, first, hiring the best talent, improving employee retention, and definitely engagement and keeping them all together, yeah? So then on today's subject also, when we talk about how HR can add value to our business, definitely is on the recruitment, retaining, and also engagement program. Then agility comes in. So because agility here, it's an avenue or like a superpower that can help improve both company and performance, and also when employees are happy and they perform, definitely they will increase the customer satisfaction. Yeah, here, by putting together our HR functions and also agility, I have 4 keys that I always take it with me. Is one, it's an empowerment, adaptability, quick response, and also definitely data analysis. I'm not a data person, so I have a manager who's good in data analysis. So what I do is we collect all of them together and make sure that when we want to retain our talent, what are our engagement program? whether it is training, it is communication, or is it getting the team together. So these are some of HR functions that can help any businesses to grow and be successful.
But if I may, before we move on to maybe comments from someone else, Isliana, and maybe this is a question to all of you. If an organization is agility first, how does that drive recruitment, right? So, you know, you have some organizations that are doing it, that are transforming parts of their business and not really through a big bang. So you have time to kind of get up to speed on the recruitment efforts and weave your way through understanding how recruitment should support that change. But if a company is agility first, how does that influence your recruitment drive?
Okay.
Because you're recruiting for a slightly more modern take of how they think, right? It's the agility way, it's the agile way of thinking, it's the agile way of behaving and delivering. So how does that work?
Okay. In my department, I have a talent acquisition team, and not only I work for the Southeast Asia region, but I also working closely with our global region. Yeah. So agility here, I realized that we have a traditional recruitment process. Yeah. So what we need to do now is, with fintech growing in the country and also in the region, what we need to do is at the recruitment process itself. So we automate certain things. Last time we called them and asked for interview and all. What we do now is, of course, we take all the resumes, we filter them. And then when we select these people, what we do is we give a link for them to answer certain questions. And then when you meet these requirements, yeah, and then our TA specialist will take it out and move on for the next interview. Then during the next interview, what we do is we identify, are you meeting for the second interview, which is the last one, whether you make it or you don't, yeah? So within that, traditionally we have for entry level, we need 30 days, you know, the KPI. So with agility, definitely it's a constant, processes and constant change. What we do is we reduce the time from 30 days to 20 days. If you can do shorter, better. If not, we stick to that 20 days. So automation in our recruitment process also matters. So that's how agility actually help us in one of our HR functions for the success of the business. Also, we need to coach our hiring manager that you cannot find perfect candidate. Make do with what you have. Look at certain scores we need and then just work on it. Then once the person on board, we help them with the certain training programs. Otherwise, you're wasting time in the recruitment, guys. Okay.
Aaron, do you have any views on this?
Yes. So I'd like to build on Isliana's point. So in fact, for me, the agility towards acquiring the talent even goes much beyond or before in the value chain. As simple as the top, we need to relook on the jobs that we typically hire, or does it call for breaking that existing set of jobs into small chunks of tasks, which could be actually carried out by different set of people, because the employee preferences are also getting changed. And with the accelerated hybrid ways of working, it calls for taking a step back and relook on what is the job for which I'm hiring for. That's one. And the second thing, there is also an opportunity for us to look beyond jobs and look in terms of the capabilities for which I am going to hire for. And the moment we change this reference point, naturally, we will also become agile to tap onto the talent resources beyond the traditional sources. There is a significant talent pool that could be tapped from the gig economies, looking beyond the basic needs for the graduation requirements, which are some of the typical barriers that we may have. So the key point over here is the agility extends through the entire of the value chain and basic shifts in the mindsets. Thereby, how can we tap onto those non-traditional resources to get in that right talents for the right job at the right time?
Asep, from a FMCG perspective, mindset and recruitment, right? When you think about recruiting for the right mindset or building the right mindset and cultivating that internally, how does that impact FMCG from your perspective?
Thank you, Greg. Just would like to also build up the things that already explained by Isliana and also Arun. From the FMCG perspective, I think okay, let me start with this, yeah, because the first question actually is how the HR actually give add value for this agility. So for me, I think I start from the organization or operating model of the HR itself, yeah. So we have like HRBP, business partner, we have COE, and also we have the, we call it HR operation or people excellent here in my organization. So business partner is very key, yeah. I think when we are talking about the future agility, we can help the business, yeah, to draw, yeah, for example, the future back organization design that we need, and identify the core skill set, yeah, the core competencies we require, and the key critical positions along the way, actually, with the strategy to attract, yeah, to get the talent, with the, the 3B strategy, for example, build from within, buying from outside, or even borrow from, the other business unit across the countries in the organization. And with that one also, how do we, again, build the mindset? Yeah? Mindset is very important, because I think as a human being, normally in FMCG, people say that, okay, I'm going to do everything in my way, my current way, but expecting the different result or better result, which is this might not be possible, yeah, because from the competition perspective, from the environmental changes, so we need to be agile and challenge ourselves to change with a lot of improvement program, productivity initiative that we have to apply. So I think this is in a more holistic perspective, and plus from the system perspective, because of people excellent, when we build the system which can help the management to make decision faster with this system, with this analytics, I think that will be also really helpful as the added value from the HR perspective to the organizations. And back to the recruitment, yes, actually using the technology, engaging of the people. Yeah, for sure. I think from the KPI perspective that we need to improve, the lead time or time to fulfill the positions. But then we are trying also to involve the people to become also ambassador for hiring in FMCG. We call it, ERF, yeah, employee referral programs and so forth, that can also help the organization for this agility. That's from my view. Thank you.
And what are your views?
Now I'm hearing already, I just have a one watch out or perspective to share with each one. I think along the way, when we talk about what HR really does, yeah, it's really easy to fall into a trap that we're measuring our output, we're measuring our activity, we're measuring our lead time, but hardly, or even as a good business partnering in the HR space, we should ask ourselves what value I'm driving, what impact I'm giving, what outcome I've been giving to the organization. So I want to tie back the question of how HR add value to the business to one of the questions from the Q&A. How can HR sit in the business table? I think very importantly, as a HR BP, you need to have the mindset to drive some sort of design thinking process. You need to empathize what customer need, what is your boss really cared about, what the business really need about, and then translate it into a P&C strategy. For example, if let's say the talents pool now doesn't cater big data need, as a HR, we should start formalizing a strategy for the next 6 to 12 months. And let's start with something small, what we can start doing in the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So I think the mindset here is very cliche, but it's still very relevant. That are we talking output or are we talking outcome? I think there is a watch out for every HR professions that in the core. Just want to call it out.
Any other views?
That's indeed a very pertinent point that Aeon has brought in. And that reminds me that it's the time where the HR as a function also become an outside-in function rather than just an inside-out function. because that is going to make the key difference of what value that we bring in and how we also enable the business to stay agile to the changing preferences of the external customers too. So that's just an additional point to say.
Yeah, if I may, I just want to build on further also. Actually, there is one time I say, if I had chance, keep doing what we are doing today, what difference we are in the olden days, and what's so unique about talking about PNC. You see, nowadays, I think to build up your point is that how do we bring further value is like we put on the head, not just only on the SOP, on the processes, we put on the head of coaching as well. Especially nowadays, it's because people heart engagement is something not tangible, something not measurable by the finance. But we as a HR folks, we know the people and PNC culture. We should, play a big role here in putting on the coaching head and also put the agenda right to deliver the values that we want to. Just want to build on that.
Sorry, I interrupted there. Who was going to say something?
No.
Oh, so to that point, Aeon, in some of the projects that I've worked on with some of the clients, a lot of the inspiration or the drive for change has been within the business unit. So leaders within that business unit have realized they want to do things differently. They want to drive change and deliver results more efficiently and faster. It hasn't really come from HR. So to what extent should HR drive change holistically for the organization, or start embedding change in different parts of the organization? Is it a shared vision for change, or is it more influenced and driven through from HR?
Maybe I can take up and follow by other panelists. Yeah, I think let's take my example from my current organization. So we are moving into agile way of working. We put all people into a network already. And then one question always stood up is, since I need to connect so many people, how do I make decisions? So to answer your question, the very first things that we as a HR need to decide together with the leadership is, how do we make decision when the decision making is so spread out and so thin? And then to certain organizations that we also need to ask ourselves, are we getting something more than we can chew, something more than we can buy? So I think it's also starting with the baby step. If let's say the business asks or the customer needs, starting with as simple as start up with the line, getting people more motivated, engaged, then we as a HR mobilize our talents, we mobilize the way of working to dish it out within the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks, challenge ourselves. I think that's why the iterations come in so fast. Yeah. So in the olden days, we say, oh, let's plan for 3 to 6 month plan, even worse, 1 year plan. We only get to review at the end of the year. So I think that ship already long sail. So to answer the question, I think very importantly is alignment with the leadership on the decision making tools. And then secondly is we also need to be realistic. We have to choose what we can chew at the time. And then as you build on the muscle to stay agility, the design thinking come in, I think naturally we can get to expand it to more diverse, more dispersed design thinking, or dispersed decision making framework. So it's all depending the maturity of organizations, if that makes sense.
We got 2 minutes left on this question. Aaron, very quickly, your views from a DBS perspective, from an HR's influence in driving some of that transformation change. What are your thoughts there?
Yes. I believe like the business are no more just about products. It's about people, and the businesses win by winning the talent in the marketplace. And therefore, it becomes all the more critical for the human resource function to lead from the front of predicting and helping the businesses to transform and win in that particular talent marketplace. As simple as that of, say, when we talk about a banking space, the traditional banking is getting transformed into a digital banking space, which means it calls for a different set of a skill set and a different source from where we wanted to bring in the skill set, including that of relooking the existing set of roles. And these changes needs to be front-ended by the HR function for the businesses to truly become successful to the changing emerging realities. That's what I see. Great.
All right. Asep, very quickly, do you have any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to contribute there?
Yeah, well, actually, all of the my colleague panelists actually already mentioned, yeah. And I think with this kind of the agility, for sure that we, in a different industry, I think we need to be clear and identify what kind of, specific contributions from the HR perspective that can add value to the organization in regard with the agility. I think this is very, very important. So maybe in the FMCG industry, the totally the the priority and then the needs actually might be slightly different with the tech company or in the banking industry. But as HR, actually, we need to know what kind of the core or critical things that we need to contribute. And with this, discussion and alignment with the business leader, I think this is very important. Yeah, thank you.
Great, fantastic. So look, I think there's some really good thoughts there, and I think that leads us into quite nicely into the last question. And I'm sure it's a burning question for a lot of the audience on the call, and that is, what is the future of work, right? And I know one of the audience members asked a question on, they heard the term future agility. And so if we think about future agility and the future of work, is it one and the same, or is one supporting the other? So, let's get some perspectives from the panelists. If you could share your perspectives on the future of work and the future of agility, right? It would be fantastic to have a deep dive into this topic. So, Asep, from an FMCG perspective, right? Let's hear your views on your perspectives on the future of agility and the future of work.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Also, maybe then other panelists can add in, yeah. But I start from the overall perspective itself. So when we are talking about the future trends of working, I also understand from other panelists say that, okay, maybe one, yeah, for example, yeah, one, actually we are talking about, we experience the hybrid or work location free actually is becoming the trend for the futures. Second, yeah, we are talking about how do we always see about the future back organization design, yeah, from time to time, that really customer centricity, yeah, which is we should listen to the customer needs. The second one, actually, we are talking about digitalization. We are talking about analytics, which is in the future trend. The predictive analytics actually is very also important in the ways of new working. And then we are also, hearing about, moving from just flexibility to become more agility. Also, this is something that coming to become a trend in the future. And also we listen about, how do we, create more and more engagement and through the creating employee experience, yeah, by the HR involving the entire people in the organization. And actually competition go along, actually from time to time becoming tougher and tougher. How do we, embrace the innovations, yeah, innovative ways to, still thinking, and maybe transformation in the future becoming the words that we often listen. Yeah? Transformation, business transformation, HR transformation, maybe more often we listen. Yeah, this is something that I can see from the future trend. While from the FMCG perspective, yeah, for me, one thing that becoming very important for the FMCG actually is that how do we still focus, yeah, to build the, as a BP especially, to build the strategy on building future back organizations, yeah, to focus more on the customer centricity. This is number one. And second, actually, from the FMCG perspective, is that engagement is very important, because people still come to the factory for, producing our goods, yeah. Then engagement, yeah, how do we improve the engagement, creating employee experience, yeah, to still connect, to still reach, to still, involve, and giving, strengthening the cultures of, agile mindset actually is really important. I think that's just for me. If then my colleagues would like to add more. Thank you.
Thank you, Asep. Aeon, is that the future of work, or is that the future of agility?
Yeah, I like the question. Is it work or is it agility? I think let's circle back to why we have agility to begin with. I think the core of agility is about asking ourselves, are we insanely customer-centric when we're talking about the way we're doing? Are we talking about value when we start doing works in the space of HR? So just want to tie back what Asep had said. In different setting like manufacturing, they already have some preset of compliance, some process you just can't run away. But the core principle of what shall we do today to deliver the most value to my customer, I think that still stay whole. So in the future of agility, I think the mindset's still there. Then the next question is, how do we form a team of teams? Like some of the questions are on the chat, yeah. Team of teams to support this kind of dispersed decision making. I think that is the biggest challenge I'm also seeing, because the org design need to allow the flexibility and also autonomy from the ground. And the question is, too many or too often, some of the leaders is too far from the operation making all the decisions, whereas the one closest to the customer get less chances of the feedback. So as a HR business partner in the organization, we should and try our level best to build the feedback mechanisms, yeah, allowing the exchange of the info. In some books I read before, like Holacracy, Teams of Teams, these are the two group books I see. It's about transparency of the backlog, transparency of what you are trying to do, especially in HR. Like Arun said earlier on, we are not in the black box anymore. People need to know how we're doing it. So I'm not sure I have answered it directly, but I think that's the future of the HR work in the settings. So I think agility will still stay. It's just that how do we structure the org design for it?
Arun, from your point of view on the banking side?
Well, to me, the future of work is all about purpose, individuality, inclusivity, agility, and accountability. The reason why I say that is whether it's in banking or in the manufacturing space, the one big shift that's going to happen or that is already happening is the workplaces are becoming more human. And the people are asking some of the very pertinent questions of what is the larger purpose of doing this particular thing. And therefore, it becomes critical for the organizations to just not create one more setup which makes money or like just focuses only on the financial statement, but to build an institution which stands for a much larger value and the purpose. And that turns out to be as a very critical differentiator. Again, if we look out, as we look out onto the future, it's all going to be filled with opportunities and challenges, whether it is climate change or digital acceleration, supply chain optimization, or demanding customers. The key over here is in the process of building a purposeful organization, how we also stay fluid to the changing realities. And that's where like the fluidity is what I see as a state of future of agility. That's where my point is.
So you would define future agility based on what you just mentioned now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the changing trends, Web3, right? I mean, that changes the way we think about agility as well, and how it influences the way in which we are organized and the way in which we deliver the work.
Yeah, and that's an important point that Aeon also has brought in. So when we talk about these changes which are emerging, it's critical for us to also look on whom are we bringing on board. It's just not about the traditional skill sets for which we start hiring the people. Rather, are we hiring the people who possesses that right learning agility, who brings in that right mindset to solve the problems, the interpersonal connectedness, the creativity. So those competencies gains all the more significance than that of the traditional skill sets, which are losing its significance in the context of the future emerging realities.
Absolutely. That kind of linked back to my previous question in the second question that we had, which was, how does recruitment drive how do the trends and how do we think about agility drive recruitment? Because we have to start thinking about what we're recruiting for, not just today's needs, but tomorrow's demands. So Isliana, from a fintech point of view, what are your views, right? Because fintech is obviously heavily influenced by emerging trends and demands. So what are your views around the future of work? Because I guess technology space is a lot more adaptable to things like that and how they can adapt to those type of changes. And then maybe what your thoughts are in a word or a term, future of agility.
Okay, thank you, Greg, and thank you everyone for giving all your insights on future of work. Yeah, to me, it's only one, which is the non-technological, which is culture. So once we have the right culture, then we can nest the rest that we talk about. It's about agility, transformation, digitalization, all those big technological world, aspects, yeah. Because when I look at, yes, fintech is an ever-changing industry. So I can be making a decision now, and then 2 hours after, I have to make another decision for the same concept, yeah. So to me, why culture is very important for future of work is because, again, the word I used just now, it nests everything, yeah, the culture. So when we have the right culture, when we attract people, we give the same culture to the people to do the work that we want. So I'm speaking from a mother point of view as well, because when you have a home institution. So the culture of your home give whether a right output or a different output. So it goes the same in organization. So the culture is the future of work. So what culture do we want to have? And in fintech, I come from a generation X. In fintech, I have generation Y, Z, and strawberry generation. So I'm not going to stay in that organization for long, guys. But these X, Y, and this Y, Z, and strawberry generation are the one who's going to stay in the organization and continue to drive the success of the organization as well. So that is why culture is important, because sometimes some organization culture comes from the people. When the people leave, the culture gone. But what we want to build is the future of work is the consistent culture, so that anybody that comes in, they do the culture that we want, not the culture that I brought in. So culture.
Can I ask, it would be good to understand specifically what do we mean, what does a good culture look like? What does a not so favorable culture look like, right? Because FMCG is a lot more, I guess, not so quickly adaptable, right? The nature of the industry is probably a lot different versus fintech. Banking, we know that it's driving change quite quickly because we're not going to banks anymore. They're doing everything via technology. Pharmaceuticals, well, they have to distribute things a lot quicker. I guess FMCG has the same type of challenges. So given that we've got a lot of people coming into the from the market into workplace now, what does culture look like? Like, define that culture.
All right. So there is no right or wrong culture, Greg. It's again, I tie it back to home institution. Yeah. So every organization have their own value. So the value drives the culture. So it depends from fintech to banking and also to FMCG. So what value, first of all, we need to ask what value are we driving, and then what's in it to the people that working with us. So you can have a fantastic culture, but if you have the wrong people, that's it. Our good culture or fantastic culture also become a bad culture because this person, for example, had a wrong foot set in from the beginning. So it's about, again, there's no right and wrong culture. It's about what is the company's value and what do we want to get out of it. So Then from there, we can attract, retain, and develop the people that we work with.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for ending us off there, Isliana. We have 5 minutes until the end of the webinar. I will thank you all for the rich and engaging conversations that we had today. So thank you for your time. Cindy, I'll hand over to you. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, panel members, for your insights today. And thank you all, the audience, for staying tuned. Now, we want to continue to engage this discussion and this topic with you. So at ADAPTOVATE, we do support HR function to meet business demands, from accelerating business design to speed to market, to aligning strategy with work done in teams. Stakeholders, both internal and external, will benefit from such transformation and alignment. Many things that we talk about today. Now, if you're keen to learn more, we also have our website with a library of resources that you can download, click from topics such as leadership, agile ways of working, change management, people and culture. So it's all available to download, and we will send that to you as well. Lastly, we do have another webinar coming up. Do join our Senior Partner and Managing Director, Paul McNamara, as he takes you through the OKRs for leadership. So with that, follow us on social media and stay tuned for more interesting sessions, and feel free to reach out to us at any time. Thank you very, very much for your time today and for joining the webinar. Have a great day ahead, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.